Hi, I'm Madison and welcome back to my channel. Today I have my 2022 manga collection. So if you're not aware, I have an entire bookcase here that is full of manga. How many manga? I actually have no idea. We're gonna find out during this. We're gonna count them all. I know I have well over 100 at least, but it's been a while since I've done a tour of my entire manga collection, so I figured now would be the time. I've collected a lot more this year and I'm just super excited to go through them all with you. So we're going to start off with the very top shelf and then we're going to work our way down. There are 6 shelves full of manga here. Some of them are double stacked and I'm very excited to get into it. So let's start. So we're going to start off with my very top shelf over here. The first manga series that is on there is my Sailor Moon collection. Now, I only have the first 6 volumes, but these are the first 6 volumes that you can actually no longer get these ones anymore. So they're kind of special in that sense. Now behind those volumes, I do have a series here that is completely in Japanese, but it is one of my favorites. I'll put up the translated name up here if you guys are curious about it. I haven't opened them, haven't read them, but it is one of my favorite series, so I just want to own it even though I can't read it. Next we have my Dream and Sun collection. I own volumes 1 through 5. The reason I only own volumes 1 through 5 is because I was realizing that my ship wasn't sailing in this, so I decided to stop collecting them. I don't like to collect manga series if I know that I'm not going to get my ship sailed at the end of them. And this is one of the very few series where that ended up happening after I already collected the first 5 volumes. Next we have a super classic series. I have volumes 1 through 5 of them, and that is Takana and Hana. This is a series between a high school girl and an older man, so it is an age gap romance, but it is super cute, super sweet, and such a classic. Now we're moving on to my Arina Tenemura collection. Arina Tenemura is one of my favorite mangakas of all time. She has so many amazing mangas out. I'm still in the process of collecting all of her books, but I do have 2 complete collections from her. We have Phantom Thief Jean. This is one of my favorite series from her. These are the new covers. I sadly don't own the original editions of this series. This is the current Arina Tenemura collection that I'm in the process of collecting. We then have the first 5 volumes of Sakura Hime, which I think is a very underrated shoujo series, especially for people who are fans of Yona of the Dawn. We then have the entire series of Gentleman's Alliance Cross. This is such a classic series, and if you have not read it, you are totally missing out. It has so much drama, so much intrigue. It's just got everything in it from a classic series, and honestly, Arina Tenemura just has some of the most beautiful mangaka styles. Like, just reading them, they're just so gorgeous to look at. So I have all 11 volumes here. My other complete series from Arina Tenemura is Time Stranger Kyoko. There are only 3 volumes in this series, and oh my gosh, does this have a plot twist in it? Shocks the crap out of you, trust me. This is so worth it, especially since it is such a short series. If you are interested in trying out Arina Tenemura and her style, it is just one of my favorites of all time. And also this one here, first off, it's actually from my friend Tina Han from back in Australia. She lent this to me years ago. She's how I got into Arina Tenemura, but I will forever be thankful to Tina because she's just the bomb. Also, fun fact, back in 2009, this 1 volume here cost 20 Australian dollars. Whereas in the United States, these cost like $9. Crazy. We also have a one-shot, and this is the Short Teppan Melancholic and Other Stories. So this is just a compilation of a lot of different short stories from Arina Tenemura. Then we have all 10 volumes of Body. Now, Body was discontinued in the United States, so while there are actually more volumes than just 10, only 10 of them were published by Viz Media Shoujo Beat, so those are the only ones that I have, but this is another classic series, and I do wish they hadn't stopped it, but alas, nothing I can do about that. Now we're going to move on to my second row, which is where I keep some of my all-time favorite, all-time classic #1 mangas. So we're going to start off with Kitchen Princess. I have the entire collection of this. It's volumes 1 through 10. This is by Natsumi Ando, who is another one of my all-time favorite mangakas. I own all of her books, not the entire series, but I do own all of the books that she has put out. This is one of my all-time favorite manga series. You can no longer buy them in single volumes, only in omnibuses. And for anyone who doesn't know what an omnibus is, that is basically like a bind-up of 2 or 3 volumes in one. So a little bit sad that you can't get them in individuals anymore, but this is definitely like a classic manga that everyone should check out. Also, strangely enough, Kitchen Princess does deal with some pretty serious topics as well. I think that it's just a really good one to teach over. Like, I think it's actually a really good one if you're brand new to manga to check out, because it kind of like has some light aspects to it, but also some serious real world problems. And I don't know, I think there's like a lot of like learning opportunities in it. Next we have my most prized possession, my number one all-time ultimate number one 3000% favorite manga series in the entire world. That is Mermaid Melody Pitchy Pitchy Pitch. This is about magical girl mermaids who can transform into idols and sing to defeat evil sea creatures. I am such a weirdo. I love this series so much, to the extent that I used to like memorize the songs and sing them when I was by the sea in the hope that someday I would turn into a mermaid, but alas, that never did happen. This also has one of my all-time favorite guy crushes, who is Kaito. Man, I love Kaito so much. This as well is a series that is currently out of print, which is super sad, so you guys can no longer collect these, but I'm lucky enough to have them. And also they just started coming out with a second series, a companion series to this, which follows Lucia and Kaito's daughter. We have another classic series going on, and that is Momote Lollipop. Once again, I own the entire collection of this, all 7 books. Momote Lollipop is amazing. It did have an English translation TV show anime that was called Save Me Lollipop. Unfortunately, it only covers half the volumes, so you don't even get into the damn endgame romance, which is one of my favorite friends to lovers, enemies to lovers romances of all time. Man, I love the guy in this. Oh my god, the payoff at this romance is so amazing. You have this human girl who accidentally swallows this little pink pearl orb, and that pink pearl orb that she accidentally swallows is actually like the token, the winning token of this tournament between witches and wizards. And because she swallows it, these 2 wizards end up having to protect her for a certain period of time until the tournament ends, because they need to be in possession of the pearl. And now she is the pearl. And it's so good. It's so good. We then have another classic, and that is Sugukata. This is one that growing up I called it Shugo-chara. Do not call it Shugo-chara. You will get attacked by people on the internet, as I have been attacked by calling it Shugo-chara multiple times. Sugukata. But another classic one. This has got one of the best openings, and also I have a thing for cat boys. You got cat boys in this. Now, another one of my all-time favorites, but I don't really talk about it too much anymore, because to be quite honest with you, the art style in this is like that classic early 2000s manga style, which is like the twig legs and like the seriously disproportioned bodies with the huge eyes and like legs that take up like 80% of the body. But that is Special A. I only own the first 2 volumes of this just because I wanted to collect it. It's one of my all-time favorite animes, and it has to do with like these 2 people who are rivals in high school. He always gets the number 1 spot and she always gets the number 2 spot, and they're constantly conflicting because that she always wants to try and best him, and he's actually in love with her this entire time, and she does not know this, and it's so good. Now we have another series that Tina got me onto. I should just dedicate every manga video I make to Tina. This is Ultra Maniac. I own volumes 1, 2, and 4. This is one that I was introduced to as an anime. Tina lent me her anime DVDs of this. I watched through it multiple times. I can still see myself watching this anime as a kid in like our childhood TV room. It is just like, this series means so much to me. It is utterly hilarious and so adorable and so much fun. It follows a witch who comes to the human world to complete her training, but she's really an awful witch. She sucks at her spells and everything goes horribly wrong, but she ends up befriending this really cool girl at her school, and it's all the shenanigans that go on from there. What we have next is, if I might say so myself, the series that I consider better than Sailor Moon, which I know will get some people to come at me, but in my opinion, you were either someone who loved this series or you loved Sailor Moon. I was a Tokyo Mew Mew girl. Tokyo Mew Mew is my life. I really want to get a tattoo from Tokyo Mew Mew. As much as Mermaid Melody is my number 1 all-time favorite manga, Tokyo Mew Mew has such a larger role in my life with the way that I shared it with so many different people. I wasn't afraid to share my love Tokyo Mew Mew. Mermaid Melody, I gate-kept from everyone that I knew about. I tried to keep it secret from everyone. It was like my secret love that I refused to share. Tokyo Mew Mew, I made like all these different graphics and stuff for it. I would sit down and make like, on like, back when like, oh god, Microsoft Movie Player used to like make really sad edits for YouTube and things like that. I used to do all that for Tokyo Mew Mew. I was nuts on it, loved it to death, rewatched it multiple times. I wanted to be a half cat girl. I wanted to be to this day, I wish my DNA was half infused with the endangered DNA of a cat creature, so I was a half cat girl too. I will never give up on that dream either, but this is also getting a reboot next year of the anime, actually this year technically, of the anime, which is super exciting. So Sailor Moon got its reboot, now Tokyo Mew Mew is getting its reboot. It is my time to shine. Anyone who does not know the Tokyo Mew Mew kind of thing, it is Mew Mew style, Mew Mew grace, Mew Mew power in your face. Anyone who's watching this that does not understand manga is going to think I'm the weirdest human being in the entire world, but I have no shame. So there are 7 volumes in the original series, and then there was also a spin-off which was Tokyo Mew Mew Ella Mode, which followed a girl who was half bunny. I know this stuff sounds weird, but that's anime and manga for you. Get over it. Then we have Gakuen Prince volumes 1 and 3. And then lastly for this row, we have Blackbird. I own volumes 1, 2, and 3. I have read the entirety of Blackbird, I just don't own it all. It is quite a long series if I remember, but this is a series that I didn't actually remember, kind of got a little bit like, it's on the spicier side for a shoujo manga, which, you know, you forget about, but it has to do with like demons and yokai and things like that, so recommend it. And that completes my second row. Moving on to the third row, we have my other queen that I love for mangakas. I don't know how I'm gonna grab all these out, there's 13 volumes. So what we have here is Missions of Love by Emma Toyama. Emma Toyama is one of my favorite mangakas. She's also a little bit on the spicy side when it comes to shoujos, which is, you know, not very common. She's not a wrapped manga. Wrapped mangas are mangas that come wrapped in plastic because they are, you know, you have to be 18 plus to buy them. These are not those, but they do get a little bit more in them. Absolutely love this series so much. I own volumes 1 through 13 minus volume 8 because there is a supply chain thing going on with mangas at the moment. Volume 8 has been out of stock for like 2 years, so don't have that sadly. But this is one of the current manga series that I'm currently trying to finish collecting fully. One of my top priorities. Absolutely love it to death. So we follow this girl, and she's a self-help novelist. She writes kind of an indie romance on her phone that she publishes weekly, and her fans start telling her that she's missing like some steam in her romance, so she ends up blackmailing the student body president at her school to do things with her for inspiration for her book. We then have Emma Toyama's other series, and that is Manga Dogs. This is just a really cute, really simple, sweet series from her about this girl who's a mangaka who makes friends with these guys in the mangaka club. And yeah. And then we have Emma Toyama's latest series, volume 1 just came out a couple months ago, and that is Vampire Dormitory. This is a vampire romance manga about a girl who ends up being saved by a vampire, and the vampire's like, hey, want to become my thrall? And she's like, well, I ain't got nothing else. And he's like, bomb.com, by the way, you have to pretend to be a boy because I go to an all-boys school, and if you are a girl, that's going to screw things over. Yep. Here we have another one of my complete manga series, and that is Happy Marriage. Happy Marriage is a josei manga series. Josei manga is a step above shoujo, which basically means this is an adult romance manga series. Happy Marriage is one of my all-time favorites. It is an arranged marriage between a girl who is a secretary at a company and the CEO of her company, and they have to keep it a secret, and it's just amazing. It is so much fun. Some of the volumes do get a little bit steamier later on in the volumes, but overall it's just a super great series, and there are 10 volumes of this. Next we have the series that everyone always asks me about because it has the prettiest spines in the entire world, and that is Waiting for Spring. This is a shoujo basketball romance series. It is utterly adorable. There are 14 volumes in it. I just finished collecting all 14 volumes. I got volume 14 for my birthday. It was gifted to me off my wish list. I absolutely love this series. It is great for beginners as well. It is so utterly adorable. The art style is so sweet as well, and the panels are very easy to understand if you are brand new to manga. Next we have a series that became very popular in 2021 because the anime adaptation did come out, and that is Horimiya. Horimiya is utterly adorable. I freaking love it. It was kind of funny how it became super mainstream. I only owned the first 4 volumes of it. I have read a lot more than this, but I'm still in the process of collecting them because these are a little bit more expensive, not that I know why. But Horimiya is so cute. You follow this girl who is super cute and popular during school, but then outside of school, she's just your regular rundown girl who's trying to take on way too much of life. and her falling for this guy who in school looks like this like kind of dweeby geeky guy, but is actually outside of school super tatted up and pierced and is kind of like badass, and it's so adorable. I love it. Moving back to Natsumi Ando, we have a series of her that I'm still in the process of collecting, and that is ɪṛsᴛᴜ. ɪṛsᴛᴜ is a kind of thriller romance because you're following this girl whose sister ɪṛsᴜ tried to commit suicide after being bullied at school. Her sister then they're twins, decides to take her place at school and pretend to be her to find out what happened. And it turns out that there's some messed up shit going on. If you like Squid Games and things like that, I would check this out. If you like Pretty Little Liars too, just thriller romance. And then last thing we have a brand new manga that just came out. It's one of my all-time favorites, and they just translated it into English, so you can now buy it. That is, I hate the English translated name, but that is Cheeky Brat, which the Japanese version is Namakizukare. This is an amazing one. It's also a basketball romance manga. This girl is the manager of her high school's basketball team, and she's in love with the team captain, who then ends up announcing that he has a new girlfriend, and she becomes quite disheartened until one of the new underclassmen joins the basketball team. He's this up-and-coming hotshot younger dude, and he falls desperately in love with her and is like, hey, I love you, you should be with me. And she's like, no, you're a playboy, why would I do that? And he's like, nah, trust me, I love you. And she's like, no. And he's like, I'll show you. And it's adorable and hilarious, and I love it so much. Now we're gonna move down to my fourth row, actually. So my fourth row here is actually where I have a lot of double stacking going on because there's space behind for me to chuck extra mangas. So I have all my BL mangas that just kind of sit separately, and they are all right here. If you do not know what BL stands for Boys Love, which is basically gay manga, male manga. One of the top people who publish BL mangas is Sublime. So the 5 BL mangas that I do own. Now these are also all wrapped mangas. They are all sexually explicit for anyone who is curious. If you do start off with one, I do have 2 that are my top recommendations. That is 10 Count and also Black or White. Black or White is slightly less sexually explicit than 10 Count is. 10 Count gets very sexually explicit as you keep going on, but it is one of my all-time favorites if you do want to start somewhere with BL mangas. So yeah, we have 10 Count, we have Sayonara Game, we have Given Volume 6, which is a super popular series, we have Bad Boys Happy Home, and then we have Black or White. Next, we have Princess Jellyfish. This is a very well-beloved, very well-known series. I have only read the first volume of it. These are extremely expensive to buy, so I do not own the rest of them yet. This was actually gifted to me for my birthday or Christmas a few years back from Ali over at the Hardback Hoarder. And to this day, it's still one of the best things I've ever received because like, it's just a super expensive series to own, so very excited for this. Then we have one of my all-time favorite josei mangas. I need the next couple of volumes because I have not read them. And the first 2 volumes of this, it's kind of funny, the first 2 volumes of this manga are also the entire anime series that's out on Amazon Prime also follows the first 2 volumes. So I'm ready to continue on, but that is obviously Watakoi. This follows otakus. If you don't know what otakus are, they're basically people who are like obsessed with video games or obsessed with manga and anime and things like that. So this is not a series that I recommend to a lot of people, even though it's one of my all-time favorites. I only recommend this to people who are already familiar with what anime and manga is and are watching and reading anime and manga, because if you give this to a regular person, they won't understand half of the stuff that goes on in this, but it is one of my all-time favorite series. Then we have Living Room Matsunaga-san. Then we have a bunch of my other josei mangas. A lot of this shelf deals with my josei mangas. Perfect World. This is a heartbreaking, depressing manga. I cried reading this first volume. This is about a girl who reconnects with her childhood sweetheart and learns that he was actually in an accident many years ago that was a spinal cord injury, and now he deals with a lot of things, being in a wheelchair and other health complications, and it is very realistic. It's very hard-hitting, but just so beautiful. We have Donuts Under a Crescent Moon. This is a GL manga. GL stands for Girls Love, which means it's a female-female relationship. And then lastly, we have A Sign of Affection. This is so cute. You're following these college students who are having romances, and our main character is a girl who is actually deaf and hard of hearing, so she uses sign language and text messaging to connect with people, and she ends up falling for this guy that she meets one day, and it's very, very cute, and it's super interesting because at the end of this volume, the mangaka does explain how she used sign language in her manga and how she tried to portray it, and the different types of sign language that are in Japanese culture and the way that she kind of put her spin on it to make it easier for people to understand in a manga format. So really, really love this, especially if you're looking for representation. This is one of my top ones. Then I have a super random manga. That is volume 3 of Tramps Like Us. You're probably thinking, Madison, what? Well, to be quite honest with you, the other title for Tramps Like Us is You Are My Pet, because it's about a girl who meets this guy and decides to let him stay at her place and be her pet. It sounds super weird, but it's one of the top josei mangas to exist. You can read this for free on Kindle Unlimited if you do have it, because it is currently out of print. And the reason why I own this physically is because I found this for like $3 at a bookstore, and these volumes actually go normally online for like 50 bucks. So, next we have Kiss Me at the Stroke of Midnight. This isn't one of my favorite series of all times, but I really love the manga style in this, so I read it just for the prettiness of it, even though the romance isn't one of my favorites because it is a celebrity romance between a celebrity and a regular girl, so it just depends. Then we have my bae Natsumi Ando's josei series, and that is Something's Wrong With Us. This is an enemies to lovers to lovers romance with an arranged marriage as well, with also a murder mystery subplot. It is amazing. Oh my god, I don't want to say too much about this because you will just be blown away. So if you do like adult romances with enemies to lovers, arranged marriage, some murder mystery in it too, check out Natsumi Ando. Then we have one of my all-time favorite manga series of all time, which I recently discovered this year and I'm in the process of collecting, and I'm so grateful because I recently got volumes 2 and 3 for my birthday and for Christmas from lovely, lovely people. That is Sweat and Soap. Oh my god, I love this series. It is so hard for me to recommend this to people though, because like the covers tend to really weird people out, and they're like, I don't want to read that. And I'm like, I swear that they're really good, even though they look kind of strange, especially because the premise is also strange. It's about a girl and she sweats a lot and she's very self-conscious of how much she sweats, and she works at a company that makes toiletries. And one day, with the head scent profiling dude who makes all the scents and smells her sweat and is like, wow, that's a really unique smell. I wish I could make that as a scent. And they fall in love. I don't know why it sounds so weird. It sounds so weird, but it's so amazing and it's so adorable and cute, and I just want people to read this, even though it sounds so weird. Then we have My Dress Up Darling. This is a wrapped manga because it does have fan service in it. If you don't know what fan service is, it is basically the fact that the manga does have a lot of panels and scenes that focus on women's bodies and the sexualization of women's bodies without, like, there's no nudity or anything like that, but it's just like a focus on, you know, big parts and panties and things like that. But I love this one so much. It has to do with cosplay and the gaming world and like gaming cosplays, anime cosplays, and like Comic-Cons and things like that. If you're a huge fan of anything like that, love this series so much, especially because it's so gorgeous. It's so, so, so beautiful. All the different outfits that there's a guy and he ends up creating all these cosplay outfits for this super popular girl at school who tries to keep her cosplaying side a secret, and I love it to death. Then we have a manga that I recommend to a bunch of people, and that is Yakuza Lover. This came out this year. It is absolutely amazing, especially if you're a fan of mafia romances. The Yakuza is the mafia in Japan and Japanese culture. And this follows a Yakuza leader and him falling in love with this girl that he meets one day, and their romance, and it is amazing. It's also a little bit spicy. Not overtly spicy, but a little bit spicy. Then we have An Incurable Case of Love by Maki and Joji. This is a hate-to-love romance between a nurse and a doctor. Then we have Yon of the Dawn. I own the first 5 volumes of this. This is a manga series that I always recommend to people who are brand new to manga, who are looking for romance and cuteness, but also some action in it as well. If you like YA fantasy, this is the series that I'd recommend for you to start with if you want to get into manga. We then have a bunch of random single volumes that I do own. We then have Love Me for Who I Am. I don't want to talk too much about this because the mangaka is actually very problematic, so I just want to mention that I do own this because I bought it a while back before I knew the mangaka was problematic. This does have non-binary representation in it, but once again, the manga is very problematic. Coming Summer Kiss is one of my all-time favorite animes, so I want to own volume 1 of the manga just so I had it because I'm a collector like that. But then for shoujo jump titles, I have Promised Neverland, My Hero Academia, and Demon Slayer. I got these at a convention a couple years ago, which was really awesome. I don't really collect Shoujo Jump titles. I don't collect a lot of shonen titles in general because there are like 17 damn volumes in each one. JK, there's more like 30, and like I don't have the money to collect all those, so I own volumes 1 of these. In a similar vein, I own volumes 1, 2, and 3 of Fairy Tail. I love Fairy Tail. I just will never continue my collection because there's like 80 volumes and I don't have the monetary means for that. We then have my number 1 favorite shonen series, and that is March and the Awakens Romance. This is the shonen series that is out of print. You can no longer collect it, which is so depressing to me, but I love this. It's my all-time favorite series of all time. Forever and ever and ever, I will love it. It's an isekai as well, which basically means it's about a guy who's transported into another world, and he's then like the savior, the main character of that world, and has to like save everyone from these evil people called the chess pieces. It's so amazing. It's very hard to explain this series, so I'm not going to try and do that, but I highly recommend you look into it if you can. Then I had this really cute compilation of Full Metal Alchemist little 4-panel comics that I was gifted from Sarah. And then I had the Full Metal edition of FMA Volume 1. This is one of my favorite series. I actually think this is a really great beginner series for a lot of people. It's also one of the only dubs that I've ever listened to for anime. I'm usually someone who watches everything as subtitles, but this as a dub was absolutely amazing. Highly, highly recommend it if you do want to watch something that has dub, so it's actually in English instead. 1000% recommend, especially if you're looking to get into anime too. Then we have Soul Eater, the perfect edition. Soul Eater is one of my all-time favorite animes as well. Me and my best friend Mason, she introduced me to this series years and years ago. We binge watched it like in a day at her house. It was so much fun, and so this series has a super special place in my heart. It has to do with like Grim Reapers and trials, so if that sounds kind of cool to you, I recommend it. And then I have volumes 1, 4, 5, and 6 of Alice in Murderland. These are super awesome, super gorgeous. It's about this family, this like massive family who is kind of like a clan, like an organized crime clan, and the dad decides that in order to find the heir, the person who will take over the company, he's gonna have all of his children fight to the death. Yep, and our main girl is this really sweet and demure girl until she gets triggered and then turns into Alice, a murdering psychopath. It's amazing. And that is that row. Now we're gonna change angles a little bit so I can keep going down. Next we have volume 1 of Kimi ni Todoke. This is the most wholesome, cutest, sweetest shoujo manga in the entire world. If you need to give a shoujo manga to a young teen, a younger like middle school student, this is a really great beginner one. It's also great for all ages because it's just super wholesome and adorable and hilarious, but it is one of the ones that I also would say does work for a much younger audience as well. Then we have one of my most underrated series, and that is Cactus Secret. There's only 4 volumes of this, so I own all 4 volumes. This is freaking amazing. It is about a girl who's in love with her best friend, and every time she tries to confess to him and tell him that she's in love with him, he goes, haha, that's a funny joke. And she goes, oh my god, what the actual F, bro? It is so funny. Another sweet and wholesome manga series that I recommend for younger people and just anyone of all ages, but definitely as well it works for very much beginners as a younger age, and that is Honey So Sweet. I own volumes 1 through 3 of this. It's about this really shy girl at school and this really shy guy, but the really shy guy looks absolutely terrifying and everyone is so scared of him, but it's just because he has a scary face and he's actually an absolute sweetheart cinnamon roll. And it's their romance. Now we have one of my all-time favorite series, and that is Say I Love You. I own volumes 1 through 3 of this. I do plan on collecting the entire thing someday. This is an amazing one, especially because it deals with so many more, I would call this new adult almost, even though the characters are in high school. It has more of like the topics of relationships, sexual relationships, the drama that goes into that, bullying, being yourself, popularity, and things like that. Like, it's just so amazing. Definitely maybe like older YA audience almost. I freaking love it. It also gets more mature as the series goes on, but it is just so phenomenal. The guy is also just super attractive in it. So yeah, but I mean, I read this all first, but there is an anime series of it if you do want to check that out beforehand to see if it does interest you, but it's one of my all-time favorites. Highly recommend. 5 stars. Then we have a manga series that I read years and years ago. I'm currently in the process of collecting, but also it had an anime came out a couple years ago that then made it very much mainstream. I absolutely love it. I'm so glad it's now being published in English as well. I would say everything but the josei mangas here I read initially online, and then as they started getting published in English is when I started collecting them, because that gave me the opportunity to do that. So this is one of those series, and that is Our Hero Ride, also known as Blue Spring Ride. In my opinion, this anime series has one of the best openings of all time, and the opening I listened to so much, so often, that it was actually in my Spotify top 100 of the year. Then we have another one of my complete series, and that is Kimono Confessory. This has 5 volumes in it. So this is a romance between an ex-heiress and the boy who used to be her personal chef's son, who is now actually a world-class pastry chef, and her working for him, and it's absolutely adorable. Another one of my fully collected series, oh good lord. Another one of my fully collected series is My Little Monster. This is absolutely adorable, super funny, has such a unique and a great art style as well. My Little Monster is about this girl who's like the #1 student in her school, like the top student, good girl, always says yes to everything. And then the guy who doesn't go to school, doesn't do anything, and just kind of ignores stuff, but because he's actually just super lonely and misunderstood. And then one day the teachers are like, hey, you need to bring him back to school. And she's like, no, why would I do that? But then she does go and try and do that, and he becomes utterly obsessed and attracted and like attached to her. And it's them having their very first romance, and they mess everything up. It is so adorable, so cute. Freaking love it. I love the side characters too. The side characters have their own romance and dramas, and it's just amazing. So 5 stars, recommend this, 13 volumes. Then we have one of my favorite series, and that is LDK, which stands for Love Dining Kitchen. This is one of my favorites because it's one of my favorite tropes of all time, and that is the trope of 2 people being forced to live together. Forced proximity in manga is my favorite. I love when they have to live in a dorm together, share an apartment together. It's just my favorite thing in the entire world, and this is about 2 high school students who end up having to share a apartment together because they are next door neighbors in apartments, but then she tries to paint her apartment and doesn't realize that the fumes will basically kill her, and then has to stay with him while it airs out. He's a super popular playboy called Icy Guy at her school, and she wants nothing to do with him, and then they fall in love. Then we have another one of my all-time favorite series of all time. The only problem with this series is that it's not out in English. You can't buy it in English, but I did buy it in Japanese. I bought all 10 volumes in Japanese because I love it. I don't care. I will just stare at the pictures. I don't care that I can't read it because it's one of my all-time favorite series. It's fine. This is Switch Girl. If you're at all familiar with the webtoon called True Beauty, it's very similar to that, except for the fact that this came out first. Every single time I talk about this manga, everyone's like, oh my god, have you heard of True Beauty? That sounds like True Beauty. I'm like, no, True Beauty sounds like this. This was first, okay? And it also has a live action adaptation, which is one of my favorites of all time, and it's one of the few K-dramas I have watched multiple times. So, Switch Girl is about a girl. She's got 2 personalities. When she's at school, she has her on mode, or when she's in public, she's got her on mode. She's dressed up, she's beautiful, she's this popular, gorgeous beauty queen of a girl. And then at home, she's a complete and utter slob, gives him second craps, and is just chillin'. And then she ends up meeting this guy who is the complete opposite of her. At school, he's on his off mode. He acts like this really dweeby, geeky guy. And then when he's not at school, he's his regular self, who is this really hot dude. And it's their friendship turned romance, and it's amazing, and I love it to death. I love it. On a similar note of one of my all-time favorite series that is not published in English, so I bought it in another language, we have AAA. I bought this in German. It's in German, yes. You know, I will say I did take 2 years of German when I was in year 5. Do I remember anything? No. I can tell you that the color yellow was gelb. That's it. So, I can't understand this, but I can look at it, and it is one of my all-time favorites as well, and that's all I care about. I have probably reread this manga 20 times. It is utterly adorable. It's about a girl who goes to the A school, and it's at the top of that school, falling for the guy who is the head of the delinquent school next door. And we wonder why I love mafia romance. I'm so into delinquents. I have always had a thing for delinquents, oh my god. And then lastly for that row, we have my next favorite josei series, which is Everyone is Getting Married. I own the entire collection of this. There are 9 volumes. It's actually one of the Are there really 9 volumes? Yeah, 9 volumes. It's kind of strange. Normally it's like 10. This is so cute. You have this girl. She's a really successful businesswoman, but really all she wants is to one day get married and just be like a housewife. She's been with her boyfriend for many years, and out of nowhere, he just dumps her, and she's like, that's it, my life is over. And then she ends up meeting this new guy, falls for him, but he has always sworn that he will never get married, and it is the ups and downs of their relationship. Okay, moving on to my final row. First we have ɪṛsᴛᴏᴜ. This is actually a BL manga, but it is not explicit. It is PG-13, and it is a boys' love, a gay romance between 2 college students, one of which is hard of hearing. Then we have I Want to Eat Your Pancreas. I know it sounds weird. It is a massive 1 single volume manga series, and it is going to make you depressed and cry by the end of it because it's about a girl who has pancreatic cancer. That is why it's called I Want to Eat Your Pancreas, okay? That's the reason why. Everyone, whenever I mention this, sits there and goes, I'm sorry, it's called what? And I'm like, it makes sense. Just trust me. Then we have a manga series that I do enjoy, but it's not one of my all-time favorites. I bought all 4 volumes because there were only 4 volumes, and I read it and it was fine. It just wasn't that satisfying by the end of it. It is called The Delinquent Housewife, 4 volumes. Yeah. Another one of what I call a criminally underrated series is Zodiac PI by Natsumi Ando, you know, my babe. This follows a girl who can communicate with the 12 horoscopes, and the 12 horoscopes help her solve crimes. And the 12 horoscopes are these little chibis as well. And I really like it, so. Now we have a series that is quite strange to a lot of people. It definitely has a lot of fan service in it, but is one of my all-time favorites, and I do own, how many volumes of this? 12, and that is Yamada-kun and the 7 Witches. This is about a curse at a school where there are 7 girls who every couple of years end up being witches, and don't know that they're witches because they don't understand their powers. And there's this one guy who ends up being a witch as well, and his power is that if he kisses you, your power transfers to him. And the main romance in this is between this guy and this girl, and the girl's a witch, and her power is to switch bodies with people that she kisses. Yeah, it's super strange. It's not going to be for everyone, especially because of the whole fan service element of it, but it's really fun and quirky and hilarious, and I really dig it. So yeah, don't judge me for it. Okay, then we have Evergreen Volume 1 and 2. Just a really chill manga, not much to say about it. Eris and the Chauffeur. This is also just a 2-volume manga series about an heiress and her romance with her chauffeur. We then have a very classic josei series that is Midnight Secretary. This is a vampire romance series. Follows a secretary who finds out that the CEO boss that she's a secretary for is also a vampire. Then we have Shuriken and Pleats. This is by the same mangaka who did Vampire Knight. This is much less problematic, for anyone who was wondering. We then have Monkey High, Iron Volumes 1, 2, 3, and 6. It happens. I buy a lot of my mangas used, so when I find volumes, I just buy them. This is a really hilarious one about this girl who moved to a school, and she's like, everyone here is freaking nuts. And then she makes friends with them all. We have Mixed Vegetables, Volumes 1, 2, 5, 6. Yeah. This is about a girl who is the daughter of a famous pastry chef, but she wants to be a sushi chef. And this guy who is a son of a famous sushi chef, but wants to be a famous pastry chef. And the two of them decide to enter into arranged marriage so that they can pursue their dreams. We then have Pink Innocent. This is also just 2 volumes. It's a really random manga series I read many, many years ago that I then found out actually was published in English, so I bought it. Yep. We then have My Fruits Basket. Now, My Fruits Basket are special edition, Australian edition fruits baskets that you can no longer buy. These go for a lot of damn money. These are my prized possessions, so they are currently in a Ziploc baggie so that they don't get moldy or turn yellow or anything like that, so they stay in pristine condition. I do also own volume 6 and 7 in these editions, which also are currently out of print too. I prefer my original Aussie editions to these ones, which were the more mainstream ones that end up happening, but yeah. I then have Wild Ones, volume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I am missing, I think, the last 2 volumes of this, or like the last volume. It's about a girl whose family is part of like the Yakuza, and the popular guy in her school turns out to be also part of the Yakuza and is now her new bodyguard. We then have a super classic series, and that is Dengeki Daisy. I have volumes 1 through 5 here. Dengeki Daisy is absolutely amazing. It's another age gap romance, but it's such a classic, so yeah. We then have High School Debut. I have the omnibuses of these, so if anyone was wondering what an omnibus was when I mentioned it earlier, this is 3 volumes in 1. Very classic series. You can no longer buy them as individuals, only as the omnibus. But I can't even remember what this is about. Oh, it's about a girl who wants to try and find a boyfriend, and this cute upperclassman decides to help her in doing that. And obviously they have a romance. We then have a classic, and that is Love Attack. This is about a girl who's a really badass martial arts fighter, and a guy who is also a really badass martial arts fighter. And it turns out that she's a bit more badass than he is, and he's like, hot damn, this girl is stronger than me. I'm in love with her. Well, bam. We then have Anonymous Noise, volumes 1, 2, and 3. I love this series. It's kind of getting a bit more recognition because I know that there is an anime adaptation over on Amazon Prime, but it's really cool, especially if you like your animes and your mangas, to have like a music element to it. There is also just a very massive love triangle in this, which is not normally my favorite, but I kind of like both the dudes, so. Okay, only 2 more mangas left. We have got Skip and Loafer. This is great if you are a fan of Kimi no Todoke, which I mentioned earlier. It's about a girl who comes from the countryside, goes to a new school in Tokyo, thinks she's hot shit, and she really actually knows nothing, but has literally negative social cues and does not understand that she does not understand anything. It is so hilarious, so wholesome. Definitely recommend it if you're looking for a brand new manga. And lastly, we have a new GL manga I'm absolutely obsessed with. This is Young Ladies Don't Play Fighting Games. It's set in a high school, set in an academy for like women who are to become young ladies, and there's like a ban, like you're not allowed to use laptops or anything like that. But one of the most popular like angelic girls at school is actually a super intense like video game player, and one of the other girls finds out about it, and they start bonding over video games and end up becoming a romance. And yeah, that is it. That's my current manga collection as of the beginning of 2022. I hope you guys did enjoy watching this video. It was super fun to go through them all. Here is the total count of how many mangas I do own, because I'm going to count it as I, edit this video. But I'm very excited, and I'm happy to know finally how many mangas I do actually own, because I'm constantly asked how many I own. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button down below. If you want to see more of me, please subscribe to my channel. And until next time, thanks so much everyone. Bye-bye.